how America can basically harden itself against the oncoming onslaught of Trump and Musk's fascism, the Muskrats' fascism.
You sum it up in just about 7 words. It's time to grow a spine. I left out the expletive. It's time to, we need to grow a spine. Democrats need to grow a spine. Where are they? As you know, I believe that President Biden's first duty to the United States of America is to defend America. And we have seen some baby steps, but I do think it might be time to start throwing punches. I also want to point out to your viewers and listeners, and I'm sure they're quite aware of this, America is not unique. There are nearly 24 other countries that have been enduring these hybrid warfare attacks from Russia. And if we just called it warfare, we would actually have to do something about it. But I think it's very important that we look around the world and we look at Georgia and Romania and Moldova and Belarus and, Ukraine, and we see that there is a world war going on. It looks different from previous wars because we call it hybrid, information war, active measures, whatever, but it is affecting the outcomes of elections. We were attacked in 2016. There was an attack on the Capitol in 2021, and in 2024, minds were twisted away from reality through various social media platforms. That was intentionally to sway the outcome of the current election. And of course, I'm happy to give you my 4-point plan on where I think we need to be pressuring Biden. But I just wanted to start with that. We're not unique. That's the whole thing. So the first thing, what I would like to see in the perfect world, if we could take some immediate action, I think President Biden, with all the powers that he now has, should say the United States supports the immediate admission of Ukraine to NATO. That would be a nice stick in the eye to Putin, in my opinion, and it would also bring to bear unlimited resources. But other countries have done it. Again, this is not peacetime. We're in war. If we just acknowledge the information war, as other countries have done, we could actually do things like that. My other suggestion is to lift all the restrictions on the weapons. It's up to Ukraine to defend itself. Just do it. Biden can do these things right now. This has always been about Ukraine. This has always been about the invasion of Ukraine. And I have geopolitical analyst friends that believe World War III actually started in February of 2014. My third thing and my favorite, Tom, is declare the Russian state a terrorist state. Declare the Russian Federation a terrorist state. Right now, Putin's banking on Russia to surrender Ukraine to him. And if Biden declared state, that would help so many of these smaller countries. Georgia right now, 21st day of protests because a Russian-backed government is not what they know. That these countries that have faced this for many years, they know what Russian interference looks like. They want to be part of the EU, and this is very reminiscent of what happened in Ukraine a decade ago. My last thing that I think is very, very important, and of course I have a million others, release the list. There are 600 U.S.-based propagandists, 600 names that I think Americans should get to see. They're politicians, they're members of our military, think tank analysts, academics, businessmen, reporters. Release that list so we can see who is doing
Who compiled this list?
So basically what we know is in the 277-page affidavit where we learned about the doppelganger operation, right? We learned that Russia was doing all these duplicate websites to make it look like sites on the West, not just in America to twist American minds, but in Germany and other countries. They were doing this operation where they would mimic a website.
Whose affidavit was this? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, that's all right. So do you remember that whole flurry in September of the Department of Justice, the FBI, the U.S. Treasury, releasing all this information about Russia's information warfare attacks on America? So there was tenant media. There were we learned about the influencers that were paid millions of dollars. Okay, so there was also I'm a docu-nerd, so I like reading all the, releases and footnotes and affidavits. So the FBI gave us a very detailed 277-page affidavit. It's called the Doppelganger Affidavit. And what it basically reveals was why they seized 32 websites that were made to look like American websites, so made to mimic something like the Washington Post or made to mimic something like CNN. And what they really were was part of an operation that was directly related and responding to the Putin regime to do 80% regular news, but 20% pro-Russian propaganda. And what we learned in that affidavit is that there are 600, and this was translated from Russia. It was incredible because they had granular detail on what was actually happening in real time in Russia, again, to target the minds of the West. And in America, there are 600 U.S. propagandists that this operation was keeping an eye on, and they were from a variety of backgrounds, but their job is to do pro-Russian, anti-Ukraine, anti-Western narrative warfare, targeting our minds. And I'll just give you one example. If you look at the feed for Tenet Media, which was the Tennessee-based company that was known to be taking $10 million from RT. We know that RT is linked to Russian military intelligence. Frozen in time, the day that the Department of Justice indicted this media company, you can still see the feed on Twitter. And you can look, it was, I think, September 4th where they froze it, where they were indicted, this company. And you just watch it, you just look at it. It is all the anti-Harris stuff. It is all the, designed to target people to, be worried about trans people. It's all this narrative warfare wrapped up as patriotism, wrapped up to look like it's America, but it's actually a Russian operation. And again, we have this lack of imagination. Our country and the minds of our citizens have been assaulted for a decade, and the response to it, again, has been very, very weak. And I was excited in September when there was this flurry of activity. I thought, finally, Americans are going to get to know how much they've been hit. And instead, we don't even have the names of the people who are doing this work on U.S. soil.
Decision?
Merrick Garland, interestingly, when the Department of Justice indicted 2 Russians as part of this operation, they did not indict the influencers here in the U.S. I don't understand why you would go after
probably because we have the free speech laws, would be my guess.
That's what's so interesting. During the same period in early September, the U.S. State Department came out with a statement that gives us great utility that finally says covert influence activities are not journalism.